Welcome to the Yogi Show. My name is Yogi Brian. I'm a co-host here on the Yogi Show along with Pedro Luna. Today's episode is sponsored by Clever Yoga. Clever Yoga's mission is to provide product, service, and benefits to the community with honesty and integrity. I personally use their Liquid Balance yoga mat and their yoga wheel, and I'm super happy with them. We have a 20% discount if you go to cleveryoga.com and use the discount code YOGISHOW20. That'll get you 20% off. So in today's episode, we have Brett Larkin on the show. Brett is a world-renowned yoga teacher and YouTube sensation. She's the leader of one of the most successful online yoga teacher training programs. It's called Uplifted. If you need some yoga at home, go check out Brett Larkin on YouTube or at brettlarkin.com. In today's episode, we talk about Brett's yoga journey, yoga in business, chakras, YouTube, and so much more. Let's get to the show.
All right, showtime with Brett Larkin on the Yogi Show podcast. Thank you for being here on this beautiful, what is it, Monday evening? I don't even know, man. I've been up forever. Thank you for being here tonight. How are you, Brett?
I'm good. Really excited to hang out with you guys.
Yeah, we're so grateful that you're here. Brian, what's up, man?
How is it going, Pedro and Brett? Thank you so much for being on the show.
Yeah. I'm excited. Let's do this.
It's going to be so fun. So first and foremost, so if you're not watching on YouTube, you got to check out YouTube because Brett basically has a yoga studio like in the back of like wherever we're talking to you on. So is that your house that you're in right now?
Yes, this is my house.
So you have a yoga mat, you have everything set up, you're ready to go.
I'm ready to go. So we can do some yoga on the mat behind me or just, nerd out on yoga. I think that's what we should do.
Awesome.
Yeah, this is going to be a nerd out session on yoga. So as we were telling Brendan before we got on the show, is like, our listener base, is new yoga teachers and aspiring yoga teachers. There's like a huge hub of our listeners. And I know that you've had an awesome journey to get to the mat and all the things that you're doing are super inspiring. Like I was telling you, I've been on your email list for like a year watching you grow and like this amazing online community. Like you can connect with people anywhere in such a high quality setting. So you've inspired me. So thank you so much for just that alone and then getting to this conversation. So super grateful. And I guess I wanted to kick off the show with that is like, Brett, like when did you decide, like going to YouTube and making that a thing? Like what was the invitation for you to be like, you know what, like there's yoga beyond just like interaction in person. I can actually take it to online and make it like global scale. Like what was that like?
It's so interesting because I think people have this conception that people like me had this mastermind plan. And I feel like it's so disappointing to tell folks that, I was too afraid very early on in my yoga career to teach in person. I had a corporate job at the time. I never thought, I had this very strong story that yoga teachers were poor, that they had dreadlocks, that they lived on like the side of sidewalks, that's not really my style. Like I'm an achiever, a high earner. And so unfortunately, this mindset that I had that yoga teachers were poor really held me back. And I stayed in my corporate job, even though I had this dream of teaching yoga that was like bubbling within me, but I just shut it down. And it was all fear. And I know that it's so scary. I love that you said, that new teachers are listening to this because I remember the fear, like even after you do your training, it's so hard to get into action. I always thought, why would anyone want to hear what I have to say? And that prevented me from going out and knocking on studio doors. I also, my job was very demanding at the time. I worked in, a high-tech culture. I worked making video games, movement and dance games. But I had a dance background. And what I knew from being a kid and going to dance camp and all that stuff is you always submitted videos of your choreography or of you doing ballet or whatever. And I went to NYU for my college degree, and I actually studied screenwriting and writing for television. Ever since I was little, cameras and TV and movies were always like a big interest for me. So as crazy as it sounds, for me back then, filming a video was like the smallest step I could take with all the fear and neuroses I had to start getting out there and putting my teaching out there. And the first class I ever recorded, I didn't even think that people would watch it. I had just developed a really cool sequence that I wanted to remember. So I said, okay, I'm going to film this sequence so I remember what I did. And I put it on YouTube, and then lo and behold, like people were like watching it and commenting. And I was like, whoa, this is a thing. and that's what kind of snowballed into this, channel that now has I think 300,000 subscribers.
Wow.
And
Yeah, I saw that. Killing it.
Wow.
yeah.
Amazing.
But it all started with like me being too chicken to teach in real life. And then of course, once I saw the success on YouTube, which was very slow and in fits and starts, then it helped build my confidence to then knock on those studio doors. And then I taught at all the studios, and I taught at Google, and I mean, you name it, I taught there, and my schedule was worn very thin.
Mhm.
I always really loved the online piece, especially because I had one of the most powerful yoga classes that I ever experienced. You guys are going to love this. I was in India, but doing a yoga video of a teacher that I love online in my little hotel room in India. I had like tiny, and you're like, those classes that you just never forget. You have like an awakening in the class, unlocks, and it just changes you. And I was like, how can I have this experience through a video?
Mm-hmm. And you did.
It changed everything. And then I was like, if I can have it, maybe someone else can too.
No
and
doubt.
I can give that to them.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. That's so powerful. Just knowing that infinite possibilities, infinite possibilities. And obviously you're able to serve a greater footprint and, on an online platform, as opposed to driving around everywhere around town, around the country, flying around to teach at these experiences, because that's just, it's exhausting. I wanted to say one thing. So I was telling Brett before, I was like trying to do a Yoga with Pedro online community. I think it just wasn't for me. I just didn't feel it. Just me. But I remember the first time I turned that camera on to record something, I was sweating so much and no one was watching. Nobody was watching. And I was so nervous.
It's, people have nerves around different things. We're all so unique in our neuroses, right? For me, the camera stuff felt like very safe because I didn't have to go and talk to someone and audition or anything like that. But we're all so different. So I always tell my students, it's like whatever tiny baby steps you can take, even though you have the fear and feel the fear, just do it, right? Because that's going to lead to more action steps and more baby steps, and that the fear never goes away. I mean, even right now, I have so many challenges in my business. I'm constantly facing just new and different fears. So the more you make friends with the fear and realize that fear is just an energetic frequency that we can also use to motivate us, to also just get more familiar with. Like, just know it's constantly going to be the passenger in your road trip through life, and making peace with that has been huge for me.
Yeah, no doubt, man. Brian, what do you think about that, man? When we talk about that before, it's like when you got that fear and you're not sure, you're uncertain. Brian, what do you do to step into it, bro?
Yeah, it's really just like Brett, like you said, it's taking action, taking that first step or taking that baby step, just getting some momentum for me. Instead of just sitting and thinking with it and like just making this problem bigger and bigger and bigger until you're to the point where you're just like paralyzed and don't know like where to go. Like just baby steps for me. Brett, you were saying you're a dancer. Do you have a TikTok?
No.
Oh my gosh, you're gonna kill
Brett,
it.
You don't have a TikTok?
Having a dancing background and
killing it. Everyone's coming.
I'm already jealous. I've been working on my TikTok game.
Yeah, for sure.
I do not do a lot of dancing these days, but the beauty of yoga is how much there is to explore. And I'm sure a lot of your listeners can relate to this. You start with one style, you start maybe more focused on the physical, and then it expands and it changes. And, coming back to talking about fear, like what you said, Brian, like when you take little baby steps and get into action, you build that muscle of confidence, just like you'd like work your bicep at the gym. It's like every time you experience some fear, you get stronger. But what you also get is you get learning. You get like what wisdom is literally like having a lot of experiences. I think in our society and our culture right now, we're all very like in our head. We think that our only brain is like our head brain, when really if we expand our viewpoint a little bit, like we have a heart brain, we have a gut brain. There's actually books written about this. So the body has an innate wisdom and intelligence, but we're totally clued out of that in the modern world. We're just on our phones. We're constantly overthinking. Yeah. So we think instead of doing the scary thing and taking action. But when we take action, what happens is we learn. So when you teach that first yoga class or you audition for that first studio job, a lot of this, what I tell my 300-hour students is just to fail fast, right? Make a lot of mistakes really quickly and just know that the more you fail, like we're taught in school that if you fail, that's bad.
Right.
And in school, that's true. But in life, actually, the more you fail, the better, because the more you learn, the more you sharpen that sword of your intuition and your discernment. And there's no way to do that like just sitting in your room in your head thinking about stuff. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
totally.
Makes total sense. Like everything, I heard this somewhere. It's like everything's feedback. So no matter what, good or bad, like everything is feedback. And it's like playing the game. You know, when you're playing Monopoly, it's like, you know, if you don't make the right, you know, choice or whatever, it's just a game, and then you play again. You know, it's just like with yoga practice or just anything. It's just all feedback. And I definitely can relate to that. How about you, Pedro?
Yeah, I love what you said about Monopoly and this idea of rolling dice, because I really do think it's like half effort and it's half luck. Like it almost reminds me of like tapas and Ishvara Pranidhana, right? Like you need to effort, you need to work, you need to put in energy, but then you also need to be surrendered to whatever outcome. Like it's 50% effort, 50% chance. But when you're constantly putting yourself out there and taking 10 more chances than, you know, the average person who's paralyzed by fear, that's when things start really getting interesting for you as a teacher. So an example of this from my life is that, you know, it started with this YouTube channel, and through, you know, getting into action and dialoguing with my subscribers, what happened is I ended up creating a private Facebook group off of YouTube, because the YouTube platform is wonderful, but it's not that great for really like curating community in the way that a Facebook group is, where you can, you know, have threads and see people's faces. And that was one of the best things that I think I did, because in that group, I got to learn a lot about my students and what they wanted. And it was so fascinating to me because they really wanted like training plans for yoga kind of that took them through different themes, like exploring the goddess Lakshmi or exploring the 8 limbs of yoga. Like they wanted to explore things thematically with a plan. That is not something that I necessarily would have thought of, but that helped me then create what is now my membership site. They told me that they wanted to do a training online. I was like, no one would ever buy a yoga teacher training online. That's crazy. And they were like, no, we want to buy one.
Yeah. So go make it, please, so we can buy it from you.
But the thing is, you know, I was able to have those conversations because I kept taking all these little action steps, having really no idea what any of it would lead to. It's so interesting because from where I am now, I feel like people ask me, they're like, how did you mastermind this whole system? And I'm like, I didn't. I just listened to my customer and kept taking action and failing fast. There are so many products that I launched that failed. I had a whole yoga course about like finding your soulmate and getting married. Nobody bought it. It tanked.
It happens.
But you never hear about that, right? I have a whole company that I even tried to build with another friend of mine that failed before I really focused on my yoga business. That was like a different kind of wellness business. There's even a little podcast I recorded on my old podcast that was just called All My Failures Detailed, because I think the more we talk about this with fellow teachers, the more people are going to get out of their own way and really step into serving their community, step into the leaders and the healers that they're destined to be.
I love that. And we started a private Facebook group, shameless plug for ourselves, for the same reason, like just creating a community around something, you know, so we're creating it around the show. And because there's an opportunity for people that are like, they don't have like their yoga sangha that they go to a studio, like they practice at home and they don't really have someone like yoga friends, let's call them, you know? So like we've done that so that people can connect about, you know, not so serious all the time about yoga and whatnot, you know, and there's definitely serious conversations that happen in there. And it's just cool to see that people put themselves out there. And you're so right about, Brian and I talk about it all the time, that like, let's just ask the audience, like, what do you guys want? And then just deliver that to them. That's all you have to do is just,
I know it's like so simple. It's stupid.
Right?
And
it really is.
I know. And I love what you said too. Like when you were saying that people don't have the community, like they're not going to a studio. What I found is like, even if people are going to a studio, the studios, many of them are really failing at creating community for people. It's just like people hustle in after work with all their stuff and they practice and they get out, and then it's like the same person I was practicing next to almost mows me down in the parking lot. Right. Like it's not, you know, this happened to me. And it's not, they're not curating this dialogue. You know, once we start to go deeper than just the poses, we want a mentor. We want people who are going through this awakening, this like conscious evolution with us. We need, brothers and sisters and friends to act as a mirror for us, who we can share our experiences with, who can tell us what classes and kriyas we should do next. And I think, just because the studios are in person, it's like they're still not doing that, is what I have found.
Yeah, no, I get you on that. Like I've heard, like definitely 100%. Like we just had like a community mixer that we created at our place and at our studio here locally in Delray Beach, Florida. And it was amazing to see the people that came and they were like, "Thank you for doing this. Like, thank you for holding this for us. We've been wanting this, and now here we are." So thank you. Kudos to you, Brett, on that. Yeah, so good.
So if like a lot of teachers, because you said if there's teachers listening to this,
tons,
a big thing that I would encourage you to do is think about like, how can you create that community, whether it's hosting tea after class, whether it's hosting a workshop series that also includes, I love like this idea of sacred circles. It doesn't even you don't need to involve goddesses or anything, but just this idea of like sitting in circle, sitting in community, having time to talk about the practice, having structured in the 300-hour training, I give you actual like outlines of how you can lead these very easily and make it so it's really meaningful for people. And I think people are really craving this kind of connection, and to the extent that they're willing to actually pay more than you might expect to go through an experience with another group of people. I think yoga teachers are often, they don't understand. They think, oh, I just offer a private yoga session and, I charge by the hour or whatever. It's like when you're offering people transformation over a series of months or a year or whatever it is, you can't even put a price tag on it. It's so incredibly potent and powerful. And that's what I'm hoping more, kind of just traditional studio teachers are going to step into this deeper connection, but also stepping into themselves as an entrepreneur, going beyond just like the teaching a class or teaching one private model.
Yeah, no doubt.
Absolutely.
You're speaking right to me, Brett. You're speaking right.
No, this is like great. This is like great info already.
This is just a selfish pod. I'm just gonna keep asking selfish questions.
Okay, let's do it. No, I'm very passionate about yoga teachers getting into action. So if you think there's stuff that people would want to know,
no doubt.
We are going. Because it was such a switch for me, because I used to always think no one's going to want to hear what I have to say. Everyone's like a certified 200-hour teacher. Like, what makes me special? There's so many yoga teachers out there, like all that stuff. Yeah. And it was totally keeping me stuck. The reality is I don't know. Are there a lot of yoga teachers out there?
Sure.
I don't think, sure. But how many of them are really stepping into their role as a conscious business owner so that they can serve and charge and impact more?
Yeah.
So very few are taking it seriously.
Heard.
And really stepping into the role of an entrepreneur who's designing an experience for people and also designing their financial future, which is a lot of what my 300-hour program is focused on.
Yeah.
When you start taking it to that next level, all your stuff comes at you, like your imposter syndrome, your fear, your money mindset. So many yoga teachers, I think, have a block around charging. There's a block around earning money for something that you love, for earning money around healing work. I had all these blocks. I had all the blocks, like name a block, and I worked through it.
I'm right there. Like, did you read all my texts and you have my email password? Like, that Kundalini energy is like on fire because you're reading my text there. No, I feel that. I feel all that. It's good stuff.
No, Joe. Yeah, and to hit back that, Brett, on you said about like just like even the ask to charge for things. I know people that will show up if I tell them I'm holding an experience. Like it will happen in my community. There's no doubt. And at the front of the room when it's time to like make an announcement, so people can actually know about the experience. And this may be for you, listener out there. It's like I've been doing this I've been teaching for like 8 years now, 9 years or some shit. And I have still struggles of like opening my throat chakra and saying like, oh, by the way, I'm holding this really cool experience that I know you'll all like. But if you want it, there's a flyer in the back if you're interested. And like, I get so worked up for like, what, just tell them what,
Yeah. A big hack that works well for me, and that maybe might be helpful for you and like your listeners, is to really shift into a place of service. Because when we think about the offering as being like my offering, so like I can make money and, you know, like it's just like all your stuff and you're in your own way. When you like think of yourself as a vessel for these teachings, you are a vessel. This is an opportunity for people to go so much deeper and for you to serve them in such a deeper, more profound way. It really helps you like get out of your own way. And here's the thing, Pedro, that I have found. If I want to offer a really transformational experience where we're coming together in circle for a series of months, if I charge like, I don't know, like $20 for that, and you just pay when you want to show up, how committed are those people going to be?
Nobody's
like,
coming.
What's like what's the transformation going to be like?
Right.
So when we think of the money as like an energy, and when people, like there is an exchange that's happening. And when something is more expensive, it actually raises the bar for people. You're giving them an opportunity to step into a much deeper commitment. When you hold that place, like for me, that was a game changer, because all of a sudden, instead of it being about me and my income or my neuroses or my personality or any of that stuff, it's like I'm in a place of service. I'm a vessel for these teachings. I'm giving these people an opportunity to step up because I know the value, my value is in the outcomes I create, right? Not by the hour, or not the fact that it's yoga, right? When we think of the outcomes that yoga has for people, I mean, people who go, was your guys like trainings that you did, your 200-hour trainings, like a life-changing experience that impacted like your relationships, your relationship with your parent, like everything?
Like my whole life. My whole life.
Now we're talking to you. Now we're talking to you. Like,
right?
Deeper down the rabbit hole.
But I mean, that's what I mean, right? So when you think of like the impact that what you're offering teachers out there has on your students, it's not about like being on this 8-foot squeegee thing. Like you are, you're like empowering people in a way that I know for me, like talk therapy didn't do. Like I was in talk therapy for like 5 years. I had chronic anxiety. It was really only these teachings coming through a particular teacher in a particular way. By the way, if you're listening, you are likely that teacher for someone, right? Because they're not going to hear it from me or Pedro or Brian. They're going to respond to it in the unique flavor that it comes out through you.
Yep. Yeah.
And that I think I know that's helped a lot of my students, this idea of stepping into this role of being in service and then giving people the opportunity to step up. And it's in benefit of the whole group. Like in my yoga teacher training online is expensive. It's the highest priced online program out there.
I bet.
And that is a deliberate decision. I don't want to create a program where people just watch videos at home and they don't have like a very high touch experience. So I'm kind of like the Rolls Royce of online teacher trainings. A lot of people are like, how is it this so expensive? And I'm like, well, because you get me completely devoted to, you and what you're going through, especially at the 300-hour level, and my support trainers and the community. And we force you to get into action. We force you to teach on these live calls. Like we give you feedback on your teaching. Like we're looking at you in every pose when you upload photos. Like it's very high touch. And because everyone pays a lot, they're invested.
Exactly.
Like they're showing up to those calls.
Oh, they're not missing it.
They're not missing it. Like if I charge less, they wouldn't show up. They'd be like, oh, whatever. It'll just be like another course that's in your desktop that you haven't finished.
Exactly. Yeah, I love that. I remember to hit on that, make that into a personal story real quick. I wanted to do an event. And I was like, oh, I could charge like $30 for this yin and whatever experience. And the lady that had this center, she's like, I want to do an event where it's $111. And I was like, who the hell is going to pay $111 for like a 2-hour workshop? And she's like, I want to do, like, you could do that. And so I was like, okay, let me believe in myself. So I did, and it sold out in like a week. And I was like, what the fuck just happened? So it totally, Brett, like change your perspective on like your offering, and it not from a place of ego, money, this, that, like, I'm in service. This will help these people, and they want it, and they'll show up 100%, and they'll invest because that's amazing. You know what I mean? You're offering. So, so cool. This is amazing. Like this speaking right to me. Okay, so tell me. Let's transition to this. So yoga teachers out there. I'm one of these people, right? So sort of a shameless question for myself, but I know you know the answer. That are like, I think I should be teaching teachers. Like I think I'm at that place where I'd like to become the yoga teacher trainer. Like, how do you know when that is? And like, what are some actions? Like first things like, to kind of step into that role. How did you do it? And what would you advise someone to do that?
So I think a really great way to start shifting into that is to start offering workshops, both like day-long workshops and multi-day workshops around a specific theme that would be like a module in your teacher training.
Boom.
Does that make sense?
Totally.
So if you really love, getting people upside down and teaching inversions, or if you really love talking about the sutras and nerding out on Samkhya and tantric philosophy like me or whatever, offering like a 1 or 2 day thing is a great way, and like planning out your content. If you start doing that with like a couple different things over time, you'll see, wow, if I put all of this together, I actually have what it takes to put together my own training. I think that the hardest part, I'm gonna show you guys my yoga teacher
manual. The manuals. Yeah, I figured.
Bust it out.
This was the hardest. The hardest part is writing the manual.
Oh my gosh.
It does not have to be as thick as this. I mean, this was the hardest thing I ever did. Like labor was nothing compared to this.
Yeah.
The 300-hour training is divided into like 4 separate books.
Gotcha.
Because we do it in 4 modules. I think that's probably the most intimidating part for people, but you just got to glue your butt to the chair and do it. Because once you do, I think a lot of teachers, like a trap that they fall into is they think of themselves as a service-based business, meaning that they're like someone that's paid by the hour to deliver a private yoga lesson. And they don't think about, well, what are the assets I can build in my business? And an asset, in my mind, is like something that's repeatable, easily repeatable, and ideally scalable.
For sure, scale, yeah.
So, I mean, a retreat, if you have a big enough venue or like a venue that can take a bunch of people, it could be an example of an asset if you run the same retreat every year. I tell all my teachers, I'm like, once you nail a retreat, run it every year, because the hardest part of a retreat is like the first time you run it, right?
No doubt.
Like
all
the vendors, all the stuff that's going to go wrong. Once you have it, like just rinse and repeat, and then you add on more. So while it may seem really hard to like develop those workshop curriculums, and for the workshops, you can just have handouts and things, or to take some time off, and maybe you actually have to cut back on your in-person classes a little bit, or say no to some cool opportunities to glue your butt to the chair and write your thing. But what this is now is an asset that's going to serve you in your career moving forward for a really long time. So starting to develop this mindset of what are assets, like a digital course is an asset, an ebook is an asset. These are things that can go on and make income for you, even if you're not physically with the private client teaching them.
Got it. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And we're not trained to think this way, and no yoga teacher training, except for mine that I'm aware of, teaches the business side of yoga.
Like that, especially like you got it. Like you have the business of yoga mindset. Like you have it. Like you're the person.
But and what's so interesting too, Pedro, is like with the 300-hour training, do you guys know who Anadea Judith is? The chakra expert. She's a PhD. She co-teaches a lot of it.
Sure.
I know the name, but I will be Googling the crap out of it after this.
She's amazing. So she co-teaches like a lot of the chakra material with me. So half of the 300-hour training is like what you'd expect in a 300-hour training. It's deeper into the subtle body, deeper into the asana, deeper into the fascial system, because I love fascia. But the other 50% is all entrepreneurship and building your yoga business and mindset. And people ask all the time, well, I just want to buy the yoga part, or I just want to buy the business part. And here's the thing. I'm like, I don't want to train teachers who aren't going to have successful businesses, because then they can't serve all the people that they're destined to serve. I was speaking to a local teacher trainer where I live, because I'm always taking a training myself at all times because I love it. Awesome. And he was like, I'm so disappointed at the number of people who finish my training and then they just tell me that they can't get teaching gigs, or that it's too hard, or that there's no jobs. And he was like really sad about it. And it's because like people aren't given enough on the business side. So my goal is to make sure that anyone who trains with me has the business information so they can have an impact there are a lot of people who need yoga. So many.
Yes.
I mean, and if we think about like Yogi Bhajan and Kundalini, Brian, right? Like this is the Aquarian age. And all of us who are listening to this show, we're like the 3% who have had this consciousness rise happen early. And it's our job to pull the rest of the population along with us for like the next 60 or 70 years.
Yeah,
if we can't sustain that, like if we can't make that a business and sustain it and thrive and serve, you know, like my goal is all my students are bigger than I am, right? Yeah. That's what we need, which is a total mindset shift from what I talked about at the beginning, right? Like there's too many yoga teachers. Why would anyone have what I have to say? Like, ugh. Yeah. I mean, I've been, but that's what we need to shift you out of.
Yeah, and it's really abundance. I mean, I'm learning it's abundance. Mm-hmm. Like there's just so many unlimited opportunities for everyone. And it's just, you know, having that abundance mindset. And you said Kundalini. We got to dive into Kundalini.
Let's go.
Here.
Okay, let's do it.
Let's go. Let's dive into Kundalini. Like how was like your first Kundalini class that you ever went to? Like, how was that? I want to hear
I
about
love that you asked that question because the first Kundalini class I ever took was awful. I had no idea. Like, it was awful. Brian, it was awful. I had no idea. It was awful because of me. I didn't know what was going on. I had, and so it was a perfect storm. It was like, I'd gone to this Kundalini studio a couple times and there was a more, mild isn't the right word because she's a potent, wonderful teacher and I love her, but teaching a little more chilled stuff. And then I went to and I did that like 2 or 3 times and I was like, this is super weird. But I was on my exploration. So I came back and there was like a special guest teacher in from LA and she was teaching these incredibly potent, crazy Kriyas. And I had what was basically a huge energy lift, but I had no idea what was happening. And I was swearing at the teacher in my head the whole time. I was like crying. I was just having so much negativity because I was confronted with all my subconscious blocks for the first time ever. Because that's what Kundalini does for you. I was really like in my negative mind, seeing my negative mind for the first time. I was so depleted after that class. I had like plans after the class to have dinner with friends and do things like I don't even know if I texted people. I was just like, can't come. And I just like went home, fell into bed, slept for like 18 hours. I'm not kidding. It was I was so upset. It was just awful. And so I didn't practice Kundalini after that for a very long time. And then I circled back to it several years later, again, not by choice. I went on a retreat and the teacher kind of, everyone on the retreat was very different levels. So it was supposed to be like more vinyasa, but she made it more Kundalini because Kundalini is kind of more accessible to people of like highly varied levels. Sure. And again, the whole time I was like, I feel so bad for everyone who was on this retreat because I literally cried every class. Like I was just sobbing, like crying my eyes out. So much emotion, so much negativity, just literally hate for having to do all the breathing, having to hold my arms up for however many, you know, like all the resistance. And I tell people, you know, it needs to come to you at the certain time that's right for you. If it's gonna, you know, just like you're gonna keep circling back to it. If you're having really adverse reactions like I was, and it's just too much, you know, walk away and come back. But when the time is right, this yoga of awareness, you know, the Kundalini as passed down by Yogi Bhajan is the most powerful elixir that you can take because it shows you all your subconscious patterning and your fear and your resistance and forces you to be comfortable with discomfort. I mean, that's what it is. And I know that as personally, my personal development has just skyrocketed once I started really getting into Kundalini Yoga. Has that been your experience too, Brian?
Oh yeah. I started Like my yoga journey, I started doing a Rodney Yee AM yoga video, like a 20-minute AM yoga, because it was easy. Like I could just get out of bed and I didn't have to like stand up or do anything for like 20 minutes. It was just like on my back. And I did that for like 2 months and I saw like huge benefits, like anxiety went down, and like I did it because I had planner's foot. And so I saw huge benefits doing like a easy amount of yoga. And then I bought a Groupon for Bikram yoga. And I'm all
we all
in.
go through that phase.
Yeah. And I'm like a fast starter. So I went and did like 3 Bikram classes a day and then almost died. And like, it was just too much for me. But then I saw a Kundalini like yoga class, and it was just kind of mystic to me. And like, I really like meditation, or just like getting deep in thought. And I went to this, it's called Yoga Phoenix. It's kind of like an ashram in Phoenix. And, you know, he's wearing all white and he's got this long white beard. I'm like, he's an awesome yoga teacher, like I bet. And he was like an amazing yoga teacher. And I really felt it. Like I got like a body high and like an emotional release. And I absolutely loved it. And I went like every Thursday. It was almost like my church. And then I just got busy and just didn't go back to it. And like I absolutely love just that practice. It's my favorite practice. And I bring my 9-year-old too.
Yeah. Even though I teach so much vinyasa, and I teach a lot of Kundalini now too, but my personal practice right now is always Kundalini. It's
just like I can feel it work, like really just like the emotional side. You know, it's just like it really gets that release out and the breathing and the locks. Like I love it.
Yeah. And I think one of the things I like to share with people is like, if you're experiencing a lot of negativity, like that's normal. I always think back to, you know, that class experience I had that was so negative, and it was partially me and being emotionally immature and not ready, but it also was partially the teacher, because she did not frame the experience at all. So something that I really do when I teach Kundalini, and I'm also working on developing a Kundalini training, which is, you know, a long-term project, but is, you know, how do we talk about that practice of Kundalini in a way that lets people know that if they want to stab the teacher or themselves, that's like a normal thing, you know, because she didn't preface any of this with like, you might feel resistance, you might start to feel anger. Right. Yeah. And I have so many people in my membership group who are like, the Kundalini is making me angry. And I'm like, no, I'm sorry. The Kundalini the Kundalini yoga is showing you the anger that's already there. That's what's happening. Yes. If you're not ready to look at that or deal with that yet, that's fine. Do other classes, but it's not making you angry. It's showing you the anger that you are literally holding in your body right now.
Oh, what's some good Kundalini exercises for anger and frustration?
Well, that's going to trigger it, or that's going to take it away?
That's going to take it away. That's going to take it away. I need this lately, some frustration out of my system.
Well, I think a lot of people ask, you know, where to start, because sometimes the things that get suggested are too triggering. So there's a YouTube video I have that's just called Kundalini Ground and Focus. And it's just the mudra is literally just this. Okay. And it's a little bit triggering because holding your arms like this is for a long time is hard. But in the YouTube video, we just do it like 3 or 4 minutes. Okay. And this mudra is super stabilizing and grounding.
I love it.
And so that's a great one to start with. If people, people want to look it up.
The rest of the show.
Yes, we'll all just be like this the rest of the show.
I'm going to put the mic up and I'm just doing this.
That's so good. So I only did Kundalini like twice in my life. And I remember, Brett, when you did like the arm thing over your head like this, I remember like they did that. And I felt like we were there forever, like kind of turning side side. I don't remember what the Kriya was. We were turning side side. And it seemed like literally forever. And I was like, yo, my shoulders are like, I thought this was like a gentle yoga class. Like my shoulders are like super lit over here, lady. Like what's going on?
I know. People think that like, because the Kundalini yogis don't do headstand or chaturanga or all these fancy vinyasa like postures, that they're weak or something. It's like these people have nerves of steel. I mean, that's actually what the practice is designed to strengthen your nervous system so that you can hold your arms out like this for 7.5 minutes or hold your arms up for 22 minutes. I mean, I've done it all, and it is so incredible because your mind is literally telling you that you're going to die. Like if you don't put your arms down.
Yeah, you literally want to yell at the teacher. Like,
yeah, and that's when you want to, you have the homicide fantasy. But what Yogi Bhajan knew is that, like the pain that this is causing is not a harmful pain. I mean, it's not like someone breaking your leg or something. And actually it's stimulating all these lymph nodes and these key, areas of the body. It's extremely scientific, and helping your endocrine system work at a much more efficient level. So when, again, I think so much about Kundalini is putting it into context for people, which I just don't see enough teachers doing, which is why, again, I was never thinking I would teach Kundalini, but I have found myself doing it just because I want to give people more information, more context.
Yes.
Wow. This is awesome. So we went from entrepreneurship to Kundalini. So cool. I'm learning so much on this show personally. So this is great. Let's move it to chakras. Cause okay. So Brett, you're like the chakra person. Like I know you love, like I said, I'm on your email list for like a year. So I've been watching you. I've been watching, not knowing that I was ever going to talk to you, but here we are. And, so I want to know, and we talk about this in the training. I'm in a 300-hour right now. I did a 200-hour years ago. I did Bikram training set long time ago. So this is my third training now. And, we just went over like a bunch of chakra stuff. And, it was interesting to hear like people's different takes, and like everyone's is different. But like for the listener out there, like how do you do it where you talk about, Eastern philosophy, you merge it kind of like with Western thinking, with the energy centers in our body, and like where we're stuck, where we're stuck. How does one, like, how do you know that you're stuck there? Like how does that awareness, like how can we bring that awareness into someone like you're blocked in your root or sacral? And then what can we try to do to like unlock it?
So that's a great question. I think one place that people often don't look, that's a really great place to start with the chakras, because everyone tends to go negative, like, where's my blocked chakra?
Right.
And the reality is we all are in constant flux and nothing's ever perfectly balanced, right? So let's just get that out there now. I think what's really cool for people to think about is what's your dominant chakra? Because we all have a superpower chakra that is naturally operating very efficiently for us and naturally has a lot of prana. So I actually developed a little Quizlet on my website that will tell people this, so we can put that in the show notes. It's a little,
sure.
It's like, it's a quiz, so it's not great, but it at least gets you thinking about this kind of thing.
Yes.
Some people, what I think is interesting is like as a culture, we are very much, just because we spend so much time in our head, in our brain. So first of all, let's review. A chakra can be in one of three energetic states, right? It can either be in a state of balance, a state of deficiency, or a state of excess. I think a lot of times people are confused because they're like, well, an excess in my heart chakra, like how could that be bad, right? But what that actually manifests as is you being very codependent in relationships. Have you ever dated the person who texts you like 900 times, or been the person texting like 900 times, right?
Shamelessly,
very insecure, right? Not having boundaries, right? So every single one of these energy centers operates best in a state of homeostasis, not when it's in excess, and then of course not when it's in deficiency either. What's interesting is Agnya chakra, the third eye chakra, in excess, it actually manifests as anxiety, constant overthinking, trying to design the perfect future, thinking about the future and the past all the time. A lot of like what we see with modern anxiety, which is so interesting because on the one hand, you'd be like, well, isn't sixth chakra all about intuition and we're disconnected from our intuition? It's like, it's not that simple. We need to really dive into, and this is what I do in the 300-hour program with Anadea Judith. Everyone watching this podcast should read her book, Eastern Body, Western Mind. It was basically like in your question.
Oh, yeah. I've heard of that book for sure, 100%.
Yeah. So she and I are together on video in this training going deeper into a lot of those concepts that she presents in the book. It's designed specifically for teachers. And we break down this, excess and deficiency, and then how it also shows up as teachers. So starting just to think about, what is your power chakra? Like, where are you naturally, like, for example, if you're like a real go-getter, overachiever, lots of energy, for me, like, I'm a third chakra dominant person. That's why I take so much action. What suffers is, right, like my self-care. Like, I forget to eat a meal unless I like literally put a reminder in my phone. Like, chakra natural tendency to work and to strive. My root chakra, for example, that creates like stability and routines, was very underdeveloped, was in a state of deficiency. So a lot of what I had to work on was like setting up structures for myself, right? That I had to take a lunch break, even though I'm an entrepreneur and work from home and could work through lunch. I forced myself to literally like leave my office, sit in the sun, or, sit and have a meal without, looking at stuff or looking at my phone. And that was a huge challenge for me. Yeah. So I would advise people to think about the whole system. And like, then usually once you can figure out where you're strong, it kind of helps you like naturally figure out where you need to just put a little bit more deliberate effort to find what balance looks like for you. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So good. I'm right with you. Like solar plexus strong, like will create dominant, no lunch, forget the lunch, forget I was sleep. What is that? All that, like that's where I am. So I feel like I'm very similar to you, and I'm a Leo. So a lot of that energy.
Oh, I'm a Leo too.
When's your birthday?
Oh, wow.
July 24th.
Oh, 31st.
Oh, that's 31st. Cool. Well, so one other thing I wanted to say about this for your listeners is that, another thing, if they want to get interested in the chakras, right, is like what's so cool about them is that they're a mind, body, spirit system. Like that they all the bodies, the chakras go across, right? So you can think about the chakras in the way that I was kind of describing, like your tendencies, your lifestyle, but you can also look at the body itself. So for example, a lot of teachers come to me, maybe they've even taken a training, but they're still scared to teach. They're still scared to use their voice. They literally like feel scared to speak up. Maybe they even have like their shoulders are rounded forward, or, so different physical clues can clue you in as well. Like maybe they have a lot of pain in their hips, or maybe their inner thighs are super tighter. So it's like we can work from the inside out, thinking about what I was talking about before, like our lifestyle, our tendencies, but we can also, this is the beauty of the chakras and why they're so easy, I think, for people to work with and connect with. You can work from the outside in, right? I have a very strong core. You probably do as well. And that's mirrored. It's interesting because in the videos with Anna Dea, my core is so strong that in the second chakra, like fluidity, bioenergetic exercises that she teaches me, I like can't do them. And it was actually awful because we're like filming the training and there was no other demo student besides me. And she's like, "You're still not doing it right." She was like, "You're overactive." And we have it on camera. It's like hysterical. I just left it in the training because I was like, "It's fine. I'm not perfect." Yeah, but she was like, your third chakra is not letting go in order to do this exercise properly.
Wow.
So you can start with the physical. You can start by looking at your fears. You can start by looking at your bank account, right? I mean, if you're not managing your money as a human or a yoga teacher and looking at your income, I mean, that's all first chakra stuff. A lot of us are victims in that arena, right? Or we choose not to look at our QuickBooks or make some of the hard decisions about how to invest our money or charge more, things like that. We're not taking care of ourselves. So, when we talk about the root chakra having to do with survival, a lot of people are like, well, I'm surviving. Like I have a house and an apartment, but it comes back to like what Brian was talking about earlier. It's like, well, do you have an abundance mindset? Or even though you're surviving, like you could be living in a mindset of total scarcity, right? Where there's not enough for everyone. You're out for yourself. You need to get the job before someone else gets the job. Like that's a lot of, what's terrifying is most of our leaders in our society right now are operating in that mindset. I mean, most of our political leaders, global leaders, I mean, that's what's so frightening. I mean, that's why we all need to step up and teach and lead to to make this next generation, the leaders of the next generation, not in that scarcity mindset.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. I take my son to Kundalini Yoga, so hopefully
that's
that
great.
helps
How old
him.
is he?
He's 9.
Oh,
he's
that's
9,
the perfect
and he
age.
loves it. He loves it. He's like, I like this type because I'm not doing, because I take him to vinyasa, and he's like, I'm doing too much. And he just likes doing the chanting too.
He likes the rabbit hole. Noah likes the rabbit hole.
I think he does.
That's so cute.
There's no doubt.
Oh.
Brian, what's your strength chakra, Brian? Which one are you strongest in?
I think maybe the throat chakra is my strength.
Oh yeah, that's.
I think so.
You have a throat chakra tattoo. He's got a tattoo.
Yeah. That's not a coincidence. He was drawn to that area.
Yeah,
no doubt.
And I think my the one I need to work on is the root chakra. I need to check my bank accounts more because I never know what's going on in there.
This is true, people.
I'm like, I have money, but I don't pay the bills. Like, what's going on?
I know, it was interesting for me. I mean, even as my business, grew, and I had a big aversion to looking at all the numbers. It's just, it wasn't where my passion and my interest was. Mm-hmm. But much deeper, when I got honest with myself, it stemmed from so much more, insecurity, and even being told as a little girl, that, men deal with the money and girls do. I mean, there's so much to unpack. And what's beautiful is like the chakras really give us a framework to pursue our self-development work in such a deeper way. And then to also add in asana and mantra and practices that we can do at home to help bring us into balance. I mean, this is why it's more powerful than just talk therapy. So,
no doubt. The mind-body connection, balance. The movement. Yeah.
Balance. Yeah. I was reading a yoga anatomy book, and it was all about like the first couple of pages was all about, at a single cell level, it's all about balance. It's about removing waste and just being in balance, and our whole bodies are cells. So it's all about balance. And with the chakras too, all about balance. It's like, how can we?
Yeah, well, I love what you said about removing waste, because that means that our endocrine system, and especially like our liver, right? And all these places that the Kundalini Yoga targets need to be operating effectively. So, we think about detox, and Kundalini to me is like the ultimate detoxifying yoga.
Breathing it out. And then,
I'm going to Kundalini, guys.
Fleshing out the lymph system,
the lymphatic system.
Applying. I love when the teacher's like, apply the root lock, and I'm like, all right, just breathe in and just it's like a yoga high. When I went to Kundalini, like the first week, I was like literally getting high on yoga.
Yeah.
Like, I love this. It's good stuff.
This has been so fun, you guys. I've really enjoyed chatting with you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to be on our show. I have one more question though. I saw virtual reality yoga. It was like 6 months ago. What happened to the VR? So what happened to that? Are you still doing that VR yoga thing? Was that just like a test?
Like, it's going to be through, I don't know if I'm allowed to say, but it's a big clothing manufacturer. And basically, so like, you put on yoga shirt and yoga pants, but inside your spandex like outfit are these little sensors. And then they're working on a technology where, as you do the poses, because the sensors can tell, your phone can tell where your body is in space through their app with the sensors. My voice in this, I don't know if we want to call it a game or an experience, would be like, Pedro, lower your right arm 3 inches to help you refine your alignment. It's a really cool concept. I think it's going to be a couple years. I think they're going to need to refine it.
Testing.
But it has been really fun to be involved with them and see how the technology is developing.
Cool.
Brian and I talk about that. The VR yoga is coming, people. Like, I don't know when.
It's coming. I'm going to be talking to you. I recorded voiceovers just the other day for them in California.
See, Brett, and Brett, when I saw that post, I was like, she's going to be the person to break it. Like, you're going to be the person to break it.
That's awesome.
That's so cool.
Don't tell them this, but I did an early prototype. Like, they asked me to like test the game. So like do a class wearing the sensors. They were like, well, let's see how this yoga teacher does. Cause they're still figuring out the scoring system. Of course. And they're early, right? And I got like a 68%.
Brett, you're a failure. You're like, wait a minute. I'm Brett Larkin. Like, what?
And I thought I was doing it all perfectly. And they were like, we're still refining it. I was like, okay.
I hope so. Or I'm going to find a new career, people.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I will keep you posted.
Yeah.
Okay, I got one last question. This question keeps me up at night. I mean, it just keeps me up at night. Do you think, and because like chakras and Kundalini, do you think Bigfoot, Sasquatch has an extra chakra? you think he has more chakras than the normal body system? Keeps me up at night.
No, I don't. And as you both probably know, I don't. I think as you both probably know, there are more than 7 chakras. Kundalini has the 8th chakra, right? And then there's many, many little chakras all over your system. Hundreds of them. It's just we focus on the main 7. My answer is that Bigfoot definitely has the same amount as all of us, but they may be spinning faster. Who knows? I don't know.
Maybe. I can finally have a good night's sleep. Thank you for that.
I love it. I love it. Brett, thank you so much for taking the time. Thanks for checking out the show, being on here with us. We are going to link everything in the show notes that we talked about. Our amazing writer will make sure to put all the deets and link some of your videos. And it's been great. So thank you for sharing your knowledge with our community. And I know that there's a lot of value that they've just digested from this conversation. It's going to definitely be a rewatch and a re-listen for me. So thank you so much.
Beautiful. Satnam. Namaste.
Namaste, friends. Namaste.
Thank you so much for listening to The Yogi Show. Visit us at theyogishow.com. We provide all the show notes there. Thank you to our sponsor, Clever Yoga. Remember, 20% off Clever Yoga products at cleveryoga.com using the code YOGISHOW20. Thank you, DJ Taz Rashid. He provides the music on the show. Definitely need to check him out to add some music to that yoga class playlist. And remember, everybody, gratitude, gratitude, gratitude. Namaste.